My name is Linda Harper. At 52, I had just embarked on the precarious journey of rebuilding my professional life. After the tumultuous waves of my divorce from David and the raw process of establishing my independence, I was rediscovering the immense satisfaction of working on my own terms. My graphic design business, Harper Creative, was in its early stages, operating from my new, modest West Loop condo. I was taking on freelance gigs, grateful for every project that allowed me to reconnect with my passion and prove my worth, not to others, but to myself. My past triumphs, my corporate comeback at innovate, my strategic dismantling of David's career, even my profound understanding of family dynamics felt like distant echoes from another lifetime. I was hungry, ambitious, and ready to prove that my best work was still ahead of me. My first big consulting opportunity came from Apex Marketing, a colossal, traditional advertising agency here in Chicago. They wanted to integrate my old-school wisdom into their modern digital campaigns. It was a step back from my previous corporate heights, certainly, but a chance to reestablish myself in the mainstream. I embraced it. I believed it was an opportunity for mutual respect, a genuine blend of experience and new-age energy. I thought they valued my insights. I was wrong. They saw my age not as wisdom, but as an anachronism. They saw my collaborative spirit as compliance. They saw me not as a seasoned professional, but as a quaint, flexible, temporary expert to be occasionally tapped, then quickly sidelined. My frustration simmered, especially as my body quietly navigated the new norms of menopause. The residual hot flashes, the occasional brain fog, sometimes made me doubt myself. But my deeper intuition, my quiet clarity, only sharpened. Then came the steady stream of subtle slights. The meetings I was invited to but felt invisible in. The accidental omissions. And finally, the team planning emails. The ones they left me off of entirely. They thought they were simply managing the flow of information, politely easing out a slightly behind-the-times consultant. They thought they were gently signaling my irrelevance. They had no idea they were providing me with the blueprint for my next act. This is the story of how their casual dismissal sparked a fire, transforming me from a disregarded consultant into their biggest and most challenging client. Before I tell you every single, meticulous, and ultimately devastating detail of how I turned their quiet exclusion into my most profound professional triumph, I want to invite you into this space. If you've ever felt that your experience, your voice, or your hard-won wisdom was trivialized or overlooked in a younger, faster environment, if you've ever been subtly cut out of a conversation that should have included you, then hit that subscribe button. This channel is a sanctuary for the unseen, a gathering place for women who are reclaiming their power and proving that true relevance is earned, not bestowed, regardless of your age. You won't want to miss seeing how this unfolds. Part 1. The veteran and the velocity of the young guard. My Chicago loft in the West Loop, with its exposed brick and high ceilings, was my personal monument to autonomy. I'd moved in shortly after David and I finalized our divorce, using my portion of the settlement, a figure now free from David's greedy gaze, to buy this bright, minimalist space. It was a tangible symbol of shedding the suffocating skin of my past marriage and a testament to the hard-won clarity that came with navigating menopause. At 52, I was no longer the unseen force behind someone else's success. I was Linda Harper, principal of Harper Creative, charting my own course. My graphic design firm was young, certainly, but it pulsed with the vibrant energy of a new beginning. I was taking on freelance gigs, slowly building my client roster, meticulously crafting portfolios that showcased not just my rediscovered artistic talent, but my unique blend of strategic insight and real-world experience. I was rediscovering the sheer, unadulterated joy of creation, of seeing my ideas come to life. The city of Chicago, outside my windows, felt like an endless wellspring of inspiration, a bustling landscape where anything was possible. I was hungry, not for fame, not for power, but for the fundamental satisfaction of work that genuinely mattered. My past triumphs at Lumensphere, where I'd helped dismantle David's career through strategic insights, had been exhilarating. but they were for another firm, another life. Now, I needed to build my legacy. It was during this rebuilding phase that Apex Marketing reached out. They were a titan in the advertising world, one of the oldest and largest agencies in downtown Chicago, a towering fortress of traditional advertising. They were struggling, like many established agencies, to adapt to the rapid shift towards digital-first campaigns, influencer marketing, and social media analytics. They were brilliant at television spots and print ads, but their digital arm was lagging. They wanted my help. Linda Harper, their senior partner, Thomas Sterling, had said during our introductory call. He was a man in his late 50s, a relic from my early corporate days, still believing in handshake deals and long lunches. Your reputation precedes you. Your strategic work at Lumensphere phenomenal. We need that kind of sharp strategic thinking here. We're looking to bridge the gap between our traditional creative genius and the new digital frontier. We need a seasoned eye, someone who understands classic branding, but also grasps the velocity of modern marketing. It was a consulting opportunity, not a full-time position. They wanted me to advise their rapidly expanding digital team on strategic branding for a major new client, Echo Communications, a cutting-edge telecommunications company that aimed to capture a younger, tech-savvy market. This was a challenge tailored for my mind, blending foundational branding principles with the fast-paced, ever-evolving landscape of digital media. It was a significant step back from being a principal myself, certainly. But it was a chance to reestablish my name within the mainstream, to show the industry that an older mind could still keep pace, even set it. I embraced it. I believed this was an opportunity for genuine, mutual respect. A genuine blend of experience and new age energy. A collaborative exchange where my wisdom would complement their youthful exuberance. I thought they valued my insights. I was wrong. From my very first day at Apex Marketing, the subtle indicators of my actual place in their ecosystem began to emerge. The open-plan office in the West Loop building, designed to foster collaboration, felt less like a beehive and more like a high school cafeteria. My desk was positioned slightly out of the main flow, almost an afterthought. The team I was meant to advise was primarily made up of 20-somethings, sharp, fast, and intensely focused on the latest TikTok trend or algorithm update. They conversed in a rapid-fire jargon that felt deliberately exclusive, like a secret handshake I hadn't been taught. I understood the digital landscape, perhaps not every technical nuance, but the strategic why behind it. I'd built social media campaigns for clients at Harper Creative. I knew the power of compelling visuals and authentic storytelling. But whenever I spoke about foundational branding principles, about long-term consumer psychology that transcended ephemeral trends, I was met with polite, almost bewildered smiles. "Oh, Linda," a young project lead named Chloe, barely 28, would say, her voice dripping with well-meaning condescension. "That's a really classic approach. We're mostly focused on agile sprints and real-time data integration now. The clients want velocity, not philosophy." Velocity. It was their mantra. And I, at 52, felt subtly, painstakingly, relegated to the slow lane. I was a respected relic, a wise old owl they could politely consult, but whose wisdom they couldn't quite integrate into their lightning-fast world. My presence was a nod to diversity, or experience, not to genuine relevance. This project, which I hoped would be a springboard for Harper Creative, was already beginning to feel like a carefully constructed gilded cage. A place where my voice would simply be a pleasant, antiquated background noise. The fire of clarity I had gained through menopause, the profound intolerance for disrespect, was beginning to burn, cold and steady, beneath my placid, accommodating exterior. I was a respected expert, but they treated me like an esteemed ornament. And I was about to teach them that an ornament could have teeth. Part 2. The email chain of exclusion. The subtle dismissals from Chloe and her team soon morphed into overt acts of exclusion, meticulously orchestrated through the very digital tools they championed. My role, ostensibly that of a senior strategic advisor for the Echo Communications rebranding, slowly began to feel like that of an expensive, occasional guest. It started with the Slack channels. Apex Marketing relied heavily on Slack for all internal communications, project updates, and team discussions. There was a main EchoComm project channel to which I had initially been added. But gradually, smaller, more specialized subchannels began to emerge. Hashtag EchoComm_creative_brainstorm. Hashtag EchoComm_data_analytics_deep dive. Hashtag EchoComm_client_feedback_loop. I wasn't added to these. I assumed it was an oversight, or perhaps that they were truly technical discussions beyond my consulting brief. So, I continued to participate actively in the main channel, offering insights, asking clarifying questions, and diligently submitting my weekly progress reports directly to Chloe. My reports were always met with polite, perfunctory "got it, Linda" responses. No real engagement. No follow-up questions. It felt like dropping a stone into a deep well. You knew it hit bottom, but you never heard the splash. Then came the meeting schedules. Chloe would send calendar invites for critical brainstorming sessions or internal reviews, but often, the invitations would arrive with a note, optional for consultants, or FYI only, primary team discussion. I would attend some, to make my presence felt, to offer value. But in those meetings, the actual decision-making happened in hurried asides, in inside jokes I wasn't privy to, in jargon that felt increasingly like a deliberate exclusion. It was as if I was watching a play, where I knew the characters and the plot, but all the crucial dialogue happened offstage. The biggest sting came from the emails. Email, for a remote consultant, was the primary lifeline to the project's true pulse. Critical planning discussions, internal debates about strategic direction, rapid-fire decisions that impacted the entire campaign, all were conducted through long, intricate email threads. And I, the senior strategic advisor, was increasingly being left off of them. It was never deliberate, of course. Always an oversight. Always an accident. "Oh, Linda, so sorry." Chloe would text me if I specifically inquired about a decision I hadn't seen. That was just a quick internal huddle. "I thought you wouldn't want to be bothered with the minutiae." Minutiae. Another code word for irrelevant to you, the older consultant. The culmination of this subtle, insidious sidelining came 2 months into the Echo Communications project. We were in the crucial phase of developing the core advertising concepts for their big launch campaign. Apex Marketing was known for its groundbreaking creative. This was where the magic happened. This was where the slogans, the jingles, the unforgettable visuals were born. My core consulting brief was precisely about aligning these creative concepts with a deep, nuanced understanding of the modern consumer, my specialty. I had submitted a detailed report on target audience psychographics, analyzing subtle behavioral patterns in young tech-savvy consumers that went beyond superficial demographics. My insights suggested a profound shift in their media consumption habits, a desire for authenticity over glossy perfection. I was convinced this was the key to unlocking the EchoComm brand. I presented it to Chloe, hoping for a robust discussion. She smiled, nodded, and thanked me for the thorough insights. The next day, I received a calendar invite for a major internal creative concept unveiling meeting. The subject line was tantalizing: EchoComm, the future of connectivity. The attendees included the entire Apex marketing executive team, all the senior creative directors, and Chloe's entire digital team. My name was on the invite. My presence was apparently required. I arrived at the meeting 20 minutes early, dressed in my sharpest blazer, armed with a fresh notebook and a keen sense of anticipation. I wanted to see their groundbreaking ideas. I wanted to provide the final strategic layer that would turn those ideas into an unmitigated success. The meeting started with a flourish. Thomas Sterling, the senior partner, opened with a grand speech about Apex's reimagined approach to modern branding. Then he turned it over to Chloe. Chloe's team unveiled their creative concepts. The visuals were stunning, high energy, technologically sleek. There were flashy animations, immersive virtual reality mock-ups, even an AI-generated jingle. But as they revealed each concept, piece by piece, my heart sank. It was all superficial. It was all flash, no substance. They had missed the mark entirely. Their understanding of the modern consumer, was based on shallow trends, not on genuine human insight. They had focused on velocity over philosophy. They had, I realized, completely ignored my comprehensive psychographic report. It was as if I had never submitted it, as if I had never existed. At the end of the presentation, the room buzzed with polite, appreciative applause. Thomas Sterling himself stood up, beaming. "Chloe, team, that was absolutely brilliant. A true testament to Apex's new direction." My hand shot up. I had to speak. I had to offer the course correction. This was my role, my core value. Thomas Sterling, surprisingly, acknowledged me. "Yes, Linda?" His voice was indulgent, almost patronizing, as if humoring a child. "Thomas, I believe there are a few fundamental misalignments here." I began, my voice clear and controlled, my brain firing on all cylinders. "My research indicates that the modern consumer, especially the young tech-savvy market, actually craves authenticity and genuine connection more than slick perfection. Your approach is focusing on spectacle. We need to integrate a more human-centered narrative, perhaps leveraging user-generated content or community-building platforms. Otherwise, this risks being seen as simply more corporate noise." A sudden, chilling silence descended on the room. Every eye turned to me. Chloe's face, which had been beaming with triumph just moments before, turned white. She gave me a sharp, angry look, a look that conveyed, "How dare you?" Thomas Sterling cleared his throat. He looked at me, then at Chloe, then at the rest of the executive team. A small, polite, yet utterly dismissive smile touched his lips. He put a hand gently on Chloe's shoulder, a gesture of quiet support for his preferred, younger protégé. "Linda," he said, his voice slow and deliberate, filled with a condescension so deep it felt like a physical blow. "We appreciate your passion, your unique perspective. But Chloe's team has really grasped the direction we're headed. This is about velocity, not deep dives into consumer philosophy. We need to move fast." And honestly, he turned back to the rest of the team, ignoring me completely. The decision for the core creative concept was finalized 3 weeks ago in the primary team planning emails. "Chloe, please remind Linda to check the EchoCom planning email chain more frequently, won't you? It keeps everyone on the same page. No point in second-guessing decisions that have already been made." The words landed like lead weights in the elegant conference room. Decision finalized 3 weeks ago. Primary team planning emails. No point in second-guessing. My stomach clenched. They had left me off the key email chain. Deliberately. They had allowed me to continue working, to submit my detailed insights, to plan my intervention. All while the critical decisions had been made without my knowledge. My supposed role as a senior strategic advisor was a farce. I was just an expensive prop. I was a ghost they politely humored, then strategically rendered invisible. The casual dismissal was breathtaking. The humiliation, searing. Not just the public nature of the rebuke, but the private understanding that my intelligence, my worth, had been systematically undervalued, bypassed, erased. I felt a sudden, profound heat rising at my neck, not from a hot flash this time, but from a rage so cold and absolute it felt like ice. My menopausal clarity, once a subtle hum, roared to life with the force of a tidal wave. They wanted to leave me off the team's planning email? They thought I didn't grasp their modern communication? Fine. I would show them what happens when you systematically exclude a mind like mine. I would show them what it was like to be a true digital ghost. And I was about to become their biggest problem. Their biggest and toughest problem, period. Part 3. The ghost's blueprint of disruption. I stood in the opulent, yet now stifling, conference room, my hand still raised from the polite gesture of interruption that had just earned me a public rebuke. The meeting quickly wrapped up, a flurry of self-congratulatory applause. Chloe beamed with triumph. Thomas Sterling looked pleased with his decisive display of authority. I felt utterly transparent, as if my body had become a clear pane of glass through which everyone could see the cold, burning fury in my eyes. But I kept my expression carefully neutral. My composure was my final shield. As I gathered my bag, Mark approached me, his face etched with concern. "Mom," he whispered, his voice tight, "that was totally out of line. I'm going to confront Thomas about this. This is ridiculous." "No, Mark," I said, my voice barely audible but firm. "You won't. I'll handle it, but not in the way you think." My eyes met his, and he saw something in them that made him pause, a flicker of the cold, determined fire he recognized from past battles. He understood this wasn't about arguing. It was about strategy. I drove home through the familiar, glittering chaos of Chicago's evening traffic, the city lights blurring into a tunnel of light and sound. My mind, usually susceptible to traffic-induced stress, was unnervingly calm. The world outside felt distant, detached. My entire being was focused on one singular, devastating objective: orchestrating Apex Marketing's inevitable demise and rebuilding my own empire from its ashes. I was being sidelined, dismissed, declared irrelevant, all because of a perception of age and an unspoken narrative of my being old-fashioned in a modern world. The feeling was sickeningly familiar, echoing the casual cruelties I had endured in my marriage and even, briefly, from my own children. But now it was happening in the professional sphere, where my intellect, not just my patience, was being actively sabotaged. My menopause, once a terrifying haze of physical and emotional unpredictability, had, paradoxically, honed my ability to see through deception. It had stripped away my politeness filter. I was done being subtle. I was done being ignored. This wasn't about seeking recognition within their system. It was about creating a new system, one where my expertise would be undeniable, indispensable. And if that meant building it directly on the ruins of their arrogance, then so be it. I pulled into the quiet, tree-lined street of my Ukrainian village townhouse. The calm of my sanctuary was a welcome balm. My mind, however, was already a digital battlefield. The words "planning email" echoed in my head. They had left me off the team's planning email. Fine. I would build a plan that didn't require their permission or their inclusion. A plan that was purely, exclusively for my own gain. My new mission was clear. I would take every single, granular detail I had learned about Apex Marketing's internal flaws, their technological blind spots, their arrogant dismissal of human-centered insights, and turn them into the foundational pillars of my own, ascendant business. My company, Harper Creative, would become their ultimate, unseen competitor. I had witnessed their weaknesses firsthand. They were good at traditional creative, certainly at splashy campaigns and big-budget productions. But their understanding of genuinely strategic digital engagement was superficial. They relied on flashy trends, not deep behavioral analytics. They saw clients as targets, not partners. And they consistently prioritized their own corporate hierarchy over true client needs, over valuing experienced, independent thought. My phone, resting silently on my desk, held a direct line to Robert Thompson, the CMO of Echo Communications. I knew his frustrations. He was a shrewd, forward-thinking executive, stifled by Apex's internal bureaucracy and slow pace. He wanted true innovation, true impact, not just slick perfection. My interaction with him in the meeting, though brief, had allowed me to see the quiet desperation in his eyes, his genuine desire for solutions. He didn't just want ads. He wanted results. My idea was audacious. I wouldn't just compete with Apex. I would become their disruptor. I would build Harper Creative into a firm that specifically excelled where Apex failed, in deep, strategic digital branding that prioritized genuine consumer connection over ephemeral trends. I would use my decades of classic market research wisdom, married to my rapidly developing understanding of digital analytics, to offer something truly unique: authenticity at scale. This was a long game, a complex chess match. I wasn't going to open a rival agency down the street. I was going to build a powerhouse so precisely aligned with Echo Communications' future needs that they would, eventually, have no choice but to hire me. And then I would make them pay for every single email they left me off of. Not just in money, but in profound, humbling, utterly satisfying recognition. Part 4. Building the Disruptor, Pixel by Meticulous Pixel, I didn't sleep that night, nor for many nights after. My townhome in Ukrainian village, usually a sanctuary of quiet reflection, became my war room. The humiliation of being systematically excluded, of being deliberately sidelined as irrelevant, had ignited a furnace of purpose within me. I was not just building a business, I was building a monument to vindication, Pixel by Meticulous Pixel. My primary focus was to redefine Harper Creative from a general graphic design firm to a highly specialized digital branding and strategy powerhouse. I understood Apex's core weakness, their inability to seamlessly blend deep strategic insight with rapid, authentic digital execution. They were good at big ideas, but terrible at nimble, real-time engagement. I would be the opposite. My immediate step was to invest heavily in specialized knowledge. I enrolled in advanced online courses for digital analytics, SEO optimization, and social media marketing. My menopausal fog, a relic from a past self, was long gone. My mind, sharp and focused, devoured new information. I discovered an exhilarating thrill in mastering the intricacies of new platforms, new algorithms, new measurement tools. I didn't just learn the theory, I immersed myself in practical application, running micro-campaigns for small, local businesses in Chicago's vibrant ethnic neighborhoods, Korean barbecue restaurants in Lincoln Square, Ukrainian bakeries in my own community, family-run Mexican grocers in Pilsen. These were clients Apex Marketing would never bother with, too small, too niche. But for me, they were my living laboratory. They allowed me to experiment, to fail fast, to learn, and to build a portfolio of authentic, results-driven digital branding. I sought out mentors, not among the established advertising elite, but among the independent, often female, digital marketing pioneers I discovered on LinkedIn. They were typically women in their 30s and 40s, building agile, client-focused agencies unburdened by traditional corporate hierarchies. They were lean, smart, and driven. I devoured their podcasts, attended their online webinars, and cold emailed those I particularly admired, humbly requesting their advice. To my surprise, many were generous with their time, intrigued by my unusual background. My age, which Apex had viewed as a liability, often became an unexpected asset here, signaling experience and a refreshing lack of ego. I meticulously updated the Harper Creative website. It was no longer just a portfolio of beautiful static designs. It became a showcase for dynamic digital campaigns, demonstrating real-time engagement, measurable growth, and authentic client stories. My case studies emphasized impact over aesthetic, conversion over click-through rates. I built a team, slowly and deliberately. Not junior designers, but savvy, independent contractors, a freelance web developer, a social media strategist, a content writer, all of whom shared my client-centric philosophy. We were a distributed, agile powerhouse, designed to execute at a fraction of Apex's overhead, with 10 times their authenticity. I made a point of following Echo Communications very closely. Their online presence, their nascent social media channels, their digital advertising strategy. I saw the areas where Apex was trying to apply traditional advertising logic to digital platforms and failing. I analyzed the subtle friction in their existing campaigns, the disconnect between their slick, corporate image and the authentic, community-driven spirit of their target audience. I saw opportunities where Apex saw only digital trends. My goal wasn't just to be better than Apex, it was to be fundamentally different. I crafted a hypothetical digital strategy for Echo Communications, a concept born from my personal passion project, not from an official consulting brief. It focused on community building, on empowering users to share their own stories of connectivity, on leveraging authentic testimonials rather than glossy stock photos. It was audacious. It was compelling. And it was exactly what Robert Thompson, the CMO of Echo Communications, had subtly hinted he was looking for in that initial meeting weeks ago: real connection, not just velocity. This unsolicited strategy, a labor of quiet, focused passion, would become my ultimate weapon. While Apex Marketing continued to plod along with their big-budget, traditional campaigns for Echo Communications, oblivious to the quiet revolution brewing just a few miles away in a small West Loop loft, I was building my own empire. One pixel, one client, one precisely executed digital strategy at a time. I was building a company that, ironically, would soon need exactly the services Apex provided. And when that moment came, the game would fundamentally change. My exclusion from their planning emails was not a setback. It was a tactical gift. It gave me the blueprint for their undoing and the motivation for my unparalleled ascent. Part 5. The faint recognition and the irony of inevitability. The ascent of Harper Creative was not a quiet secret for long. While Apex Marketing continued its laborious, traditional branding efforts for Echo Communications, my small, agile firm began to generate its own significant buzz within the industry, particularly in the burgeoning digital marketing space. Our focus on authentic, human-centered digital strategies, coupled with impressive ROI for our smaller clients, caught the eye of industry publications and tech blogs. I started receiving invitations to speak at local Chicago digital marketing meetups, then regional conferences. My name, Linda Harper, began to appear in unexpected places, not as a former corporate consultant, but as a recognized innovator. Apex Marketing, in its corporate lumbering, slowly became aware of our existence. I imagine the conversations in their executive suites. Who is Harper Creative? They're a small shop in the West Loop. Isn't Linda Harper that older woman who consulted on the Echo Com pitch? She does logos, doesn't she? The dismissive tone, I knew, would still be there, but now laced with a hint of bewildered curiosity. They recognized the name, but they didn't connect me, the overlooked consultant, with this rising star agency. I was a ghost, a whisper, an uncomfortable anomaly. My team, those young, sharp freelancers I had gathered around me, started reporting anecdotal evidence. Linda, Apex is mentioning Harper Creative in their internal competitive analyses. My social media strategist, Sarah, told me one morning, her voice laced with triumph. They're listing us as a challenger firm to watch in niche digital strategies. I smiled. The threads were beginning to intertwine. They were starting to feel the heat. They just didn't know the source of the fire. I continued to meticulously monitor Apex Marketing's ongoing campaigns for Echo Communications. I saw their struggles intensify. The market reacted coldly to their slick, polished, but ultimately inauthentic brand messaging. Echo Communications, keen to capture the elusive Gen Z market, found their carefully crafted, traditional campaigns missing the mark entirely. Their social media engagement remained flat. Their digital ad spend, astronomical, yielded disappointing returns. They were bleeding market share to more nimble, more authentic competitors. The weakness I had identified months ago was now a glaring, undeniable liability. And it was all happening under Marcus Thorne's exasperated leadership, the man who had called me too emotional. The irony was exquisite. My quiet revenge wasn't through direct confrontation, but through superior execution. I was simply building the very agency Apex Marketing should have been, if only they had listened. Then came the turning point. As Harper Creative continued to scale, taking on larger, more complex clients, we reached a bottleneck. My strategic prowess and creative vision were limitless. My small, agile team was brilliant at execution. But when it came to truly massive, national digital media buying and complex programmatic advertising at scale, the kind of services required for a multi-million-dollar campaign, my small firm simply didn't have the existing infrastructure, the historical data, or the massive negotiating power that a global behemoth like Apex Marketing commanded. We had a clear choice: invest millions in building our own internal media buying desk, a process that would take years and divert critical resources. Or strategically outsource. The thought, when it first flickered in my mind, felt utterly insane. Hire them? The very agency that had dismissed me, that had systematically left me off of critical emails, that had trivialized my contributions? It felt like an ultimate betrayal of my own hard-won freedom. But then, the clarity settled. This wasn't a betrayal. This was the ultimate strategic power move. This was turning the tables so completely, so fundamentally, that the architects of my past exclusion would be forced to not only acknowledge my undeniable success, but also to actively contribute to it. This was not revenge. This was pure, unadulterated, devastatingly effective vindication. I wouldn't just be their client. I would be their biggest, most demanding, and undoubtedly toughest client. I would become their strategic nightmare, forcing them to confront every single flaw I had identified, every bias they had held. I ran the numbers with a cold, clear focus. Outsourcing our digital media buying to a large agency like Apex would be the most efficient, cost-effective, and impactful solution for Harper Creative to serve our rapidly expanding clientele, which now included a number of large tech companies seeking aggressive digital campaigns. Their infrastructure was massive. Their existing relationships with ad platforms were unparalleled. It was the smart business decision, and it had the added benefit of a profoundly personal, deeply satisfying irony. I reviewed my hypothetical digital strategy for Echo Communications, the one I had meticulously crafted months ago, long before it was requested. It was still audacious. It was still compelling. It was still exactly what Echo Communications needed. The client Apex was losing because of their own complacency. The client I was now about to capture, then demand Apex help me win. The stage was set. The tables were about to turn. And I, the ghost they had quietly tried to dismiss, was about to walk back into their gleaming office not as a subservient consultant, but as the powerful, uncompromising client who held their financial future in her hands. The email chain of exclusion was about to become the direct line of command. Part 6, the unthinkable meeting and the mask of professionalism. The phone call was carefully orchestrated. My executive assistant, a sharp young woman named Mia, was instructed to set up an introductory meeting with Apex Marketing's media buying department. She made the inquiry sound entirely routine, a simple request for a proposal for digital ad spend management. She didn't mention Harper Creative's true scope, nor did she reveal that I would be attending the meeting. My intention was to arrive as a surprise. The meeting was set for a crisp Tuesday afternoon in February, in one of Apex's glass-walled conference rooms overlooking the Chicago River. I chose my outfit with precision: a tailored charcoal pantsuit, a simple white silk blouse, and my quiet, unyielding confidence. I wasn't there to make a statement with a loud presence, but with a silent, undeniable power. I wanted my competence to be the loudest thing in the room. I arrived precisely 5 minutes early. The reception area was the same cold, gleaming monument to corporate self-importance I remembered from my consulting days. The same politely aloof receptionists. The same bland elevator music. Everything was meticulously preserved, including, I suspected, the subtle culture of exclusion. As I walked into the conference room, the small team assembled by Apex was already there. 3 young executives from their media buying division, a data analyst, a campaign manager, and a young director, barely 30, named Ben. They looked eager, expectant, ready to impress a potential new client. And then, at the head of the table, sat Chloe, my former project lead, the one who had systematically left me off planning emails, who had subtly dismissed my insights. Her smile was practiced, her posture confident. She was here, I realized, to shepherd this new business, utterly unaware of who the potential client truly was. Chloe looked up as I entered the room. Her polite smile faltered. Her eyes widened, a flicker of bewildered recognition, then pure, undiluted shock. The color drained from her face. Her confident posture stiffened. She looked like she had seen a ghost that had just walked in wearing a perfectly tailored suit. "Linda," she stammered, her voice thin with disbelief. "Linda Harper? What are you doing here?" I offered a small, calm smile. "Hello, Chloe. It's a pleasure to be back. I believe I'm here to discuss a potential partnership. As in, Harper Creative is looking for a media buying agency. And Apex Marketing, surprisingly, made the cut for a preliminary meeting." Ben, the young director, who had been introduced to me as Mr. Ben Thompson, our lead on digital acquisition strategy, no relation to Robert Thompson from EchoCom, thankfully, looked utterly confused. He glanced from a bewildered Chloe to my composed face. "Ms. Miller? Do you two know each other?" Chloe's jaw worked, but no words came out. The humiliation was palpable. She had systematically, casually dismissed me, a consultant, believing I was irrelevant. Now, I was here as the principal of a rapidly growing, highly successful agency, a prospective multi-million-dollar client. The irony was exquisite. We worked together briefly, I said, allowing just a hint of cool detachment into my voice. On the Echo Communications pitch. Though my role on that project was, shall we say, a bit undefined. Now, however, my role is very clear. I'm the client. I walked to the head of the table, the very seat Thomas Sterling had occupied when he had delivered his public rebuke. I calmly placed my Harper Creative branded folder down. I sat. I looked at the three young executives from Apex Marketing. They looked like deer caught in headlights. So, I said, my voice crisp and authoritative, I understand Apex Marketing believes it can offer unparalleled expertise in large-scale digital media buying and programmatic advertising. Harper Creative has recently scaled rapidly, and we are now handling multiple significant client accounts that require expertise beyond our current internal capacity. We are looking for a partner agency to manage our digital ad spend efficiently, transparently, and with an unwavering focus on ROI. Can you tell me why Apex is the right firm for that? And how you would address the need for a truly authentic, human-centered digital engagement that often seems to be lacking in large-scale campaigns? Chloe was visibly trembling. Her carefully constructed facade of professionalism was crumbling. She opened her mouth to speak, but her voice failed her. Ben, the young director, however, surprised me. He took a deep breath, and despite the obvious awkwardness, composed himself. Miss Harper, he began, his voice a little shaky. I'm afraid I'm not fully briefed on your past work with Ms. Miller's team, but I can tell you about our current capabilities. He launched into a surprisingly concise and professional overview of Apex's digital media buying capabilities, clearly trying to salvage the meeting. I listened, carefully assessing his competence. He seemed sharp, focused, and unburdened by Chloe's prior prejudices. This was a direct contrast to David. A positive sign. This interaction gave me a glimpse of the real Apex, the one buried under layers of corporate complacency and internal politics. I realized my initial plan, to simply humiliate them, was too simplistic. My new objective wasn't just to punish. It was to extract the maximum value. And if that meant teaching them a painful lesson while making them work for my business, then so be it. This was not revenge. This was simply a demanding client. A very demanding client. The toughest they would ever face. And they didn't know it yet. Part 7. The uncompromising client. The meeting proceeded. Ben, with surprisingly steady professionalism, took the lead, detailing Apex's digital media buying capabilities. Chloe remained mostly silent, her face a pale mask of shock and embarrassment, occasionally interjecting with strained smiles that looked more like grimaces. I asked sharp, probing questions, not out of malice, but from a deeply informed understanding of Apex's strengths and, crucially, their historical weaknesses. I was a professional asking professional questions, but my precision, my refusal to accept platitudes, revealed my intimate knowledge of their industry. Can you provide granular data on your typical click-through rates versus engagement rates for authenticity-focused campaigns? I'd ask, leaning forward, my gaze direct. And how do you ensure brand consistency across a fragmented digital landscape, particularly when integrating with, shall we say, more human-centric brand narratives? Ben initially struggled, pulling up generic data. We prioritize reach, Ms. Harper, he'd say. Reach without relevance is just noise. I'd counter, my voice unwavering. Harper Creative values a deeper metric, resonance. How do you measure that? Chloe finally interjected, her voice tight. Linda, our methods are proprietary. We can't just share all our internal metrics in a first meeting. Chloe, I replied, a calm, unwavering steel in my tone, you will find that Harper Creative expects full transparency and accountability. We operate on a trust but verify principle. Our campaigns are designed for impact. And if Apex wants our business, you will provide comprehensive data to demonstrate how you achieve that impact. Ben looked at Chloe, then back at me. A flash of understanding seemed to pass between us. He understood that I wasn't just a tough client. I was a knowledgeable client. He started pulling up more specific, granular examples of their data, clearly trying to impress me with the depth of his technical capabilities. By the end of the meeting, they were clearly flustered, but also surprisingly energized. I had pushed them hard. I had exposed some of their blind spots. But I had also offered them the opportunity to rise to a new level of challenge. I promised them a full proposal from Harper Creative within a week, outlining the scope of work and my expectations. Over the next few weeks, the game intensified. Harper Creative sent Apex a comprehensive RFI, request for information, a meticulous document detailing every single requirement, every KPI, key performance indicator, every expectation we had for a digital media buying partner. It was designed to expose any gaps in their strategic understanding, any shortcuts they might be inclined to take. It demanded an almost unprecedented level of transparency and detail. I ensured that Mark, my son, was fully aware of the stringent requirements. He recognized the strategy instantly. "Mom," he'd laughed over a video call, "you're giving them the full David Harper treatment. They're going to hate you." "Good," I'd replied. Discomfort often breeds growth. They left me off the planning emails. Now they're going to plan every single minute of their next 3 months for my benefit. Apex Marketing, realizing the sheer volume of potential business from Harper Creative, assigned an entire team to respond to my RFI. I could see the internal struggle. They had dismissed me. Now I was demanding their absolute best, and I would accept nothing less. Their proposal, when it arrived, was a revelation. It was exhaustive. It addressed every one of my challenging questions. It conceded some of their past weaknesses in authentic engagement. And, crucially, it included a section proposing specific, customized strategies for human-centered digital campaigns, strategies that echoed many of my initial, dismissed insights. They had clearly gone back and reevaluated their fundamental approach. They had finally understood. I set up the contract, a substantial, performance-based agreement with rigorous KPIs and an opt-out clause if targets weren't met. I was a tough client, yes, but I was also fair. And I paid on time, a fact their finance department quickly appreciated. The working relationship began. My initial main contact was Ben, the young director. He was eager to prove himself, surprisingly open to my direct, often critical, feedback. He started actively seeking my senior strategic guidance on the trickier campaigns. Chloe, my former project lead, remained awkward. She would send me emails with overly formal salutations, always CCNG several layers of management. Her defensiveness slowly crumbled as she saw the sheer scale of the Harper Creative accounts and my undeniable expertise. She eventually tried to apologize for her past behavior. I nodded, accepted her apology politely, but kept the relationship strictly professional. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was about professional re-education. The power dynamic had shifted completely. I was no longer the unseen, dismissed consultant. I was the demanding, informed, and invaluable client. And Apex Marketing, the behemoth that had tried to make me disappear from their email threads, was now completely at my command. The irony was sweet, and the work was unexpectedly exhilarating. Part 8. The Price of Disregard and the quiet triumph working with Apex Marketing as their most demanding client became a unique form of exquisite vindication. They were large, resourceful, and capable, but their internal culture was still hampered by the very arrogance and inefficiency I had observed from the outside. My explicit, precise demands for data transparency, for authentic engagement metrics, and for strategies that prioritized true human connection over superficial reach, forced them to confront their long-held biases. "Linda," Ben would confess to me on our weekly calls, his voice tired but impressed, "your KPIs are the toughest we've ever faced. You ask for things our other clients don't even know exist. You're teaching us how to be a better agency." My instructions were not subtle. When their creative team presented concepts that were too slick, too corporate, or too far removed from genuine consumer insights, I didn't mince words. "This isn't resonating," I'd say, my voice calm but firm. It's performing like a 30-second commercial in an age of 5-second TikToks. Go back to basics. Show me empathy, not just engagement. They hated it at first. They tried to push back, to use their industry jargon to imply that my understanding of modern marketing was outdated. But I was fluent in their language, and more importantly, I had the data to back up my critiques. I was paying them millions of dollars. My results were consistently outperforming their traditional approaches. My criticisms, born from actual strategic understanding, forced them to adapt. Chloe, my former project lead, eventually became my secondary point of contact on certain campaigns. She was still stiff, still awkward. One day, during a review of a particularly complex digital analytics report, I asked a series of highly technical questions about conversion funnel optimization. She fumbled, unable to provide clear answers. Ben stepped in, answering for her. "Chloe," I said, my voice kind but firm, "perhaps you should schedule some time with our data science team. They'd be happy to walk you through our internal measurement protocols. It's crucial that all client-facing leads fully understand these metrics." It was a subtle, yet profound, reversal. She had once patronized me, subtly suggesting I check email chains to stay on the same page. Now, I was gently suggesting she educate herself to keep pace with my demands. The subtle irony of the situation became a running joke within my inner circle. My sister, Sarah, found it hilarious. "So, you're basically teaching them how to do their jobs and making them pay you millions for the privilege?" she'd asked over one of our regular video calls. "That's next level, Lynn." "It's not about revenge, Sarah," I'd clarified. "It's about getting the best possible service for my clients. And if that means elevating an entire agency in the process, then so be it." Their arrogance and my need aligned perfectly. But of course, a deep satisfaction permeated the entire process. Each time Apex met a challenging KPI, each time they reported a breakthrough driven by my stringent demands, it was a quiet triumph. Their initial exclusion had not silenced me, it had amplified my voice, giving it an unprecedented volume and authority. My decision to build my own business, to transform myself into their primary client, was not just an act of professional self-preservation. It was a masterpiece of strategic vindication. I was forcing them to learn, through direct financial consequence, the true value of experience, clarity, and unwavering client centricity. The very things they had dismissed in their young, arrogant haste. The personal transformations within Apex marketing were also visible. Ben, the young director, flourished under my demanding guidance. He grew into a more strategic, more client-focused leader. I watched him subtly challenge his superiors, gently push for more authentic campaigns, often citing client directives, my directives. He had recognized true leadership, and it wasn't always found in the corner office. Thomas Sterling, the senior partner who had publicly chastised me, eventually had to acknowledge my impact. During a high-level review of our contracts, he sat across from me, a strained smile on his face. "Linda," he'd said, his voice unusually subdued, "Harper Creative has been quite a challenge. Your expectations are incredibly high." "Only as high as your firm's potential, Thomas," I replied, a cool, unreadable gaze in my eyes. "And our clients expect results, which we are consistently delivering." "Indeed," he conceded. He avoided eye contact. He knew. He had tried to sideline an older consultant. He had unknowingly pushed her to build a formidable rival agency. And then, in the ultimate act of irony, he had been forced to take on that very rival as his most profitable client. His arrogance had paved the way for my dominance. Part 9. The legacy of a disregarded email. I sat in my spacious, vibrant West Loop studio, a thriving hub of creativity, innovation, and unwavering client success. Harper Creative was now a recognized leader in strategic digital branding, a go-to firm for ambitious clients seeking authentic impact. The soft hum of computer servers, the quiet buzz of my brilliant team, the distant sounds of Chicago's ceaseless energy, it was all music to my ears. My personal evolution paralleled my professional ascendancy. The hot flashes, the brain fog, The fleeting moments of self-doubt that menopause had once brought, they were now just faint echoes, testament to a transformation completed. My life at 55 was vibrant, authentic, and unapologetically mine. I had defined success not by the expectations of others, but by the relentless pursuit of my own truth. They had left me off the team's planning email. They had dismissed my experience, branded me as old-fashioned, and thought they could simply sideline an older woman. But they failed to grasp a fundamental truth. A mind like mine, tempered by decades of observation, by a personal journey through profound change, does not simply disappear. It adapts. It learns. It rebuilds. And then it returns. Not to seek inclusion, but to command it. My success was not built on their failure, but on their myopia. Their arrogance had created a vacuum of unaddressed client needs. My clarity, born of the very exclusion they orchestrated, allowed me to see and fill that vacuum. The agency that had tried to silence me now paid millions of dollars for my expertise. Their biggest and toughest client was the woman they tried to erase. The irony was exquisite. The vindication was complete. The subtle insult, the excluded email, they were not mere slights. They were the very sparks that ignited my revolution. They were the final, crucial lessons my menopause-driven clarity needed to fully understand my worth. I learned that my true power was not in seeking a seat at their table, but in building my own. And then, making them compete for a spot at mine. Part 10. The Unseen Force of Unapologetic Value. I am now 56. Harper Creative has opened a second office in New York City, solidifying our national presence. We are a formidable force, celebrated for our strategic foresight and our human-centered approach to digital branding. My daily life, balanced between leadership of a growing firm and moments of quiet reflection in my Ukrainian village garden, is one of profound purpose and boundless joy. My connection with Mark and Emily is stronger than ever. Mark, now a thriving entrepreneur himself, often references my story to inspire his own teams, holding me up as a paradigm of resilience and strategic vision. Emily, too, has come to appreciate my relentless pursuit of authenticity, drawing lessons from my professional assertiveness as she navigates her own career trajectory at Lumensphere. We share a genuine, unburdened respect, stripped of any lingering entitlements or outdated assumptions about mom. Thomas Sterling and Chloe at Apex Marketing are still very much in Chicago, still doing business, still running their traditional campaigns. And yes, Harper Creative is still Apex Marketing's single largest client, maintaining strict performance metrics, demanding relentless transparency, and constantly pushing them to innovate in areas where they used to be complacent. My presence in their ecosystem is a constant, subtle reminder of the consequences of underestimating experienced talent. They never refer to me as the old consultant. I am simply Linda Harper, the demanding, high-value client. Their respect, hard-won and meticulously enforced, is now undeniable. My greatest triumph, I realize, was not just in building a successful business. It was in transforming the very currency of my worth. They had tried to devalue my experience, to sideline my contribution by simply taking me off an email list. They thought that by ignoring me, they could make me disappear. But the silent change after 50 is not a retreat. It is a refinement. It is a crystallization of decades of wisdom into an unstoppable force. It is the unwavering conviction that true value does not need an invitation. It simply manifests. And then it demands to be seen.
And paid for.
My influence is now undeniable. My value, unapologetic. Linda turns to address the camera directly. She is in a sleek, modern, yet warmly inviting office space, perhaps a new branch of Harper Creative. Behind her, a large digital display shows a complex but elegantly designed data visualization project she is leading. She radiates quiet confidence and undeniable power. Have you ever been subtly excluded in the workplace, overlooked for opportunities, or dismissed from critical conversations, perhaps because others deemed your experience outdated or your age a liability? What was the moment, that quiet, searing realization, When you knew you couldn't just walk away, you had to utterly transform and then return on your own terms. Tell me your story in the comments below. Let's talk about the silent battles we fight in the professional arena, the subtle ways our worth is dismissed, and the profound power of building our own tables when a seat isn't offered. Your journey of redefining your relevance and commanding respect might be the exact inspiration someone else needs to do the same. And if you're ready to prove that your old-fashioned wisdom is exactly what the modern world needs, if you're ready to turn professional slights into your most